Welcome, dear listener, to Lantern&Lore, where the past flickers softly like candlelight and history unfolds in whispers beneath the stars. Tonight, we find ourselves on a quiet balcony in a city of learning, Padua, in the early 17th century. The air is cool and still, the night sky vast and infinite above. Here stands a man with a telescope, gazing upwards, tracing the silent dance of distant lights that few have seen before. This is a story of discovery, not of thunder or upheaval, but of patient eyes opening to the cosmos, revealing new worlds circling a distant giant. So settle in gently and let us travel back to a night when the moons of Jupiter first came into view. In the quiet stillness of a spring evening in the year 1610, a man stood on a wooden balcony overlooking the gentle streets of Padua, Italy. The air was soft and mild, carrying a faint whisper of blooming flowers and the distant murmur of the city settling into night. Above, the sky was slowly deepening into shades of indigo and navy, stars beginning to appear like tiny lanterns hung delicately across the vast canvas of the heavens. This man, Galileo Galilei, was not merely a man gazing up in wonder at the night sky. He was an observer, a seeker, a mind that had turned tirelessly toward the cosmos with instruments of his own design. That night, he was about to witness something that would forever change humanity's understanding of the universe. For years, the night sky had been a familiar presence to Galileo. He had watched the planets trace their slow paths among the stars, the phases of the moon shifting like the pages of a cosmic book. But it was in this moment, standing quietly on the balcony with a small telescope, an invention still new and fragile, that he turned his gaze toward a bright point of light not far from the familiar glow of the moon, Jupiter. Jupiter, a massive planet shining with a steady, pale glow, had long been known to the naked eye, but with the aid of his telescope, Galileo could see details invisible to all others. That night, and many nights that followed, he observed small points of light close to Jupiter, like tiny stars hovering in its vicinity. Night after night, he watched as these lights shifted positions, moving in patterns that were unmistakably not random. These were not stars. They were moons, 4 in number, moving around Jupiter in an elegant dance. Today we call them Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, names borrowed from the myths and legends of old. But in Galileo's time, they were a revelation. Here was a miniature system of worlds, orbiting a planet like the Earth orbits the Sun. The discovery was subtle but profound. It challenged the long-held belief that all celestial bodies circled the Earth, placing Earth at the center of the universe. If moons could orbit Jupiter, then perhaps Earth was not the fixed center after all. This was a quiet revolution, unfolding in the calm of a night filled with stars. Galileo's notes from those nights tell of patience and careful attention, of sketches made by candlelight and countless observations repeated to confirm what his eyes had seen. The telescopes then were simple, fragile devices, made from glass lenses ground by hand. Yet through these humble instruments, the universe began to reveal new truths. The balcony where Galileo stood was more than a platform. It was a threshold between worlds, between the familiar streets below and the infinite expanse above. The air held a stillness that seemed to cradle the moment, as if the universe itself paused to be noticed. The gentle rustle of leaves, the distant sounds of footsteps fading into the night, all blended into the quiet symphony of discovery. The night sky was clear, the constellations familiar yet transformed by the presence of these new moons. Jupiter's 4 companions moved with a grace that mirrored the clockwork precision of celestial motion, a cosmic ballet unfolding beyond human reach but brought close by the curious eye of a man on his balcony. Galileo's discovery was more than a simple observation. It was an invitation to look deeper, to question what was known, and to embrace the vast unknown with wonder and courage. The moons of Jupiter became symbols of a broader truth that the universe was far more complex and beautiful than had ever been imagined. In the nights that followed, word of the discovery spread quietly among scholars and thinkers. Some embraced it as proof of the heliocentric model proposed by Copernicus, others met it with skepticism or fear. Yet the moons continued their silent journey around Jupiter, indifferent to the human debates they inspired. As the seasons turned and the years passed, Galileo's balcony remained a place of reflection. The telescopes improved, the understanding of the cosmos deepened. Yet the magic of that first night, the moment when distant lights became worlds in motion, lingered like a soft glow in the memory of the skies. With each passing night, Galileo's understanding grew. He observed the moons waxing and waning, dancing in their orbit, a miniature system mirroring the greater celestial order. The motions were predictable and graceful, following the invisible lines of gravity that bound them to Jupiter. This discovery did more than add points of light to the sky. It struck at the heart of the universe's structure. The dominant view of the cosmos held Earth at its center, an immovable throne around which all else revolved. Yet here were moons circling a planet, demonstrating that not all heavenly bodies moved around Earth. The heavens, it seemed, had many centers. Galileo knew the implications of what he had seen. His observations provided evidence for the heliocentric theory that placed the sun at the center, a radical idea first proposed by Nicholas Copernicus decades earlier. Though this truth was not yet widely accepted, the moons of Jupiter became a silent testament to a new way of understanding the heavens. The nights passed quietly, filled with the soft ticking of time and the gentle turning of pages. Galileo's balcony became a sanctuary of discovery, a place where science and wonder mingled beneath the stars. The city below rested in shadow, its noises dimming to a murmur, while above, the universe unfolded in silent majesty. The distant glow of Jupiter and its companions was a gentle reminder of the vastness beyond, of mysteries waiting patiently to be revealed by those who dared to look. In those serene hours, the cosmos seemed close, almost within reach, linked by the slender thread of light passing through Galileo's telescope. As the evening deepened into night, the stars multiplied until the sky was a vast sea of lights, twinkling faintly in the cool air. The moon had risen, casting a gentle silver glow that softened the shadows on the balcony and the rooftops below. Galileo remained at his post, peering steadily through the lens of his telescope, his breath slow and measured, matching the steady pulse of the universe unfolding before him. In those quiet hours, time seemed to stretch and fold as if the cosmos itself slowed to a gentle rhythm. The planet Jupiter dominated his view, a pale, steady orb against the velvet darkness. Around it, the 4 points of light traced their paths with rhythmic precision. Galileo watched the moons with the care of a gardener tending to seedlings, knowing these observations would grow into knowledge that could change the way the world understood the heavens. Jupiter's moons were not visible to the naked eye, their light too faint and too close to the planet's glare. But through the telescope, they became companions to the giant world, their motions like the ticking of an unseen clockwork mechanism. Night after night, Galileo documented their positions, noting how they moved in circles around Jupiter, some closer, some farther, each with its own unique speed. This meticulous attention was not mere curiosity. Galileo's observations were a quiet rebellion against centuries of celestial doctrine. For over 1,000 years, the Ptolemaic model had held sway, placing Earth at the center of all things. The heavens were perfect, unchanging spheres that revolved around the immovable Earth. The very idea that there could be centers other than Earth was heresy to many. Yet the moons of Jupiter told a different story. They were undeniable evidence that not all heavenly bodies circled Earth. They suggested a universe far more complex, with multiple centers of motion and worlds that orbited others. This was a small glimpse into the grand architecture of the cosmos, one that Galileo would share with a world eager and fearful to listen. Beyond the science, there was something deeply poetic in the discovery. The balcony where Galileo stood was a modest platform, but that night it became a bridge between humanity and the infinite. The gentle wind stirred the folds of his cloak, and the soft rustle of leaves whispered secrets of the night. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and the earth after rain. Galileo's thoughts drifted between the tangible and the sublime. He knew that these moons, invisible until now, had been circling Jupiter for eons, silent witnesses to the slow dance of time and space. To him, they were more than points of light. They were companions in the vast loneliness of the universe, evidence that the heavens held stories yet untold. He imagined the worlds themselves, moons bathed in the distant glow of the sun, perhaps rocky, perhaps icy, orbiting a giant planet far beyond the reach of human travel. These celestial bodies moved in unison, bound by invisible forces, their orbits predictable and elegant. In this realization lay a profound truth. The universe was not a fixed, unchanging stage, but a living, breathing tapestry of motion and change. The moons of Jupiter were a small part of this vast cosmic dance, yet their discovery marked a turning point in human understanding. They were a beacon illuminating the path from old beliefs to new horizons. Galileo's notes from that spring of 1610 reveal his careful observations and the joy he found in the clarity the telescope provided. His sketches captured the shifting positions of the moons, tracing their orbits like lines on a map. Each night brought new data, new confirmation that the moons moved in consistent patterns around Jupiter. This steady progression of knowledge was a testament to patience and perseverance. Galileo was not a man of sudden flashes but of enduring focus. His discovery was not made in a single moment of inspiration but in the quiet accumulation of nights spent observing, recording, and reflecting. The balcony was a sanctuary, a place where the boundary between the earthbound and the celestial blurred. The soft light of the candle flickered beside him, a small flame against the vast darkness outside. Around him, the world slept, unaware of the revelations unfolding overhead. The city of Padua itself was a place steeped in learning and curiosity. The University of Padua, where Galileo held a professorship, was a hub for scholars from across Europe. It was a place where ideas could be exchanged, debated, and refined. Yet even here, the new discoveries challenged established thought. Galileo understood that his findings would not be accepted without resistance. The notion of a universe with multiple centers was radical. It questioned the central place humanity had claimed for itself in the cosmos. To many, the idea was unsettling, even dangerous. Yet for Galileo, the pursuit of truth was paramount. His telescope was a tool not just of measurement, but of liberation from the confines of tradition. The moons of Jupiter were a signpost pointing toward a universe larger, more intricate, and more beautiful than had ever been imagined. The balcony on that cool night held the promise of change. The stars overhead seemed to shine a little brighter, as if in recognition of the discovery. The air was filled with a quiet anticipation, the kind that comes when new knowledge begins to reshape the world. As dawn approached, the first pale hues of morning began to soften the darkness. Galileo lowered his telescope with care, his mind already turning to the next night's observations. The moons would continue their steady orbit, and he would be there to watch, to document, and to understand. This moment, suspended between night and day, was a quiet turning point in history. The moons of Jupiter had been found not by accident or by divine revelation, but by patient eyes trained to see beyond the obvious. They were the fruit of careful craftsmanship, steady hands, and an unyielding curiosity about the cosmos. And so, as the city awoke beneath the soft light of dawn, Galileo remained on his balcony, a solitary witness to a new chapter in humanity's story, a story written in the stars and whispered by the silent moons of Jupiter. The weeks following Galileo's first observations were filled with a quiet intensity. Each evening, as twilight faded and the stars emerged, he returned to his balcony with the same unwavering dedication. The telescope, though modest by today's standards, was a remarkable window into a world unseen by any human before. Its lenses bent and captured the faintest whispers of light from across the vast gulf of space. Galileo's meticulous notes grew thicker, pages filled with careful sketches and calculations. He charted the movements of the moons, measuring their distances from Jupiter and the intervals between their appearances. The patterns emerged with clarity, a celestial clockwork of orbits bound by the invisible hand of gravity. In his mind, Galileo pieced together a new map of the heavens. The moons moved in elliptical paths, some faster, some slower, circling their giant host like dancers in an eternal ballet. This was motion not dictated by Earth's pull but by Jupiter's own sphere of influence, a miniature solar system reflecting the greater harmony of the cosmos. The discovery did not come without challenges. Many who heard of Galileo's findings were skeptical, some dismissing them as optical illusions or artifacts of the telescope. Others clung fiercely to traditional teachings, reluctant to abandon the comforting order of an Earth-centered universe. For Galileo, these doubts were obstacles, not deterrents. He welcomed scrutiny, knowing that true understanding would require patience and proof. Beyond the scientific importance, the moons of Jupiter held a deeper significance. They offered a new perspective on the cosmos, a universe alive with complexity, with multiple centers of motion, where Earth was but one small world among many. This shift in thought rippled quietly through the learned circles of Europe, planting seeds of change that would grow for centuries. Galileo's balcony became a symbol of this awakening. Night after night, under the endless canopy of stars, he pursued knowledge not for fame or fortune but for the sake of truth itself. The gentle rustle of the olive trees nearby, the distant toll of a church bell marking the hour, and the occasional whisper of the wind created a symphony of calm that accompanied his work. The telescope had its limits. The lenses distorted slightly at the edges, and the fragile instrument demanded careful handling. Yet despite these constraints, the revelations it provided were profound. The moons of Jupiter were not distant pinpricks of light but dynamic worlds bound to their planet, proof that the universe was more intricate than anyone had imagined. Galileo's thoughts often wandered beyond the data. He imagined standing on one of those moons, looking up at the vast giant Jupiter dominating the sky, its swirling storms visible even from a distance. What wonders might those worlds hold? What secrets lay hidden beneath their surfaces, waiting for future generations to uncover? These contemplations filled the quiet hours, blending science with wonder. They reminded him that discovery was as much about imagination as observation, about seeing not only what was but what could be. The city of Padua, with its narrow cobbled streets and quiet plazas, seemed a world away from the vastness above. Yet in its heart, a new understanding was taking root. Scholars and students at the university debated the implications of Galileo's work, some embracing the new vision of the cosmos, others wary of its consequences. In the courts of Europe, the discoveries stirred interest and controversy. The heavens, once seen as immutable and perfect, now appeared mutable and complex. The moons of Jupiter became a touchstone in the growing conflict between tradition and innovation. Galileo understood the stakes. His observations challenged not just scientific models but the very worldview that placed humanity at the center of creation. Yet he remained steadfast, guided by the conviction that truth must be pursued wherever it leads. Back on the balcony, the nights passed in steady rhythm. The light of the moons waxed and waned with the phases of Jupiter's orbit, their positions shifting like clock hands marking cosmic time. Galileo watched patiently, recording every detail, aware that each observation was a piece in the larger puzzle of the universe. The natural world around him was alive with quiet sounds. The soft chirping of crickets, the distant barking of a dog, the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze, all blended into the fabric of the night. Above, the stars shone with a steady brilliance, guardians of the secrets Galileo sought. Occasionally, the sky would be veiled by clouds, the telescope shrouded by mist and rain. On those nights, Galileo's work paused, but his mind continued to turn, considering the broader implications of his findings. The cycles of weather mirrored the cycles of discovery, periods of clarity and obscurity, patience and anticipation. Over time, the moons of Jupiter became known as the Medicean stars, named in honor of the powerful Medici family who supported Galileo's work. This recognition was both a tribute and a protection, a way to align scientific discovery with political influence in a world where knowledge was often entwined with power. Galileo's writings from this period reveal a man deeply committed to the pursuit of knowledge, yet keenly aware of the delicate balance he had to maintain. His discoveries opened doors to new understanding but also risked provoking the ire of those invested in old beliefs. The balcony itself seemed to embody this tension, a place where the old world met the new, where the familiar cityscape blended with the vast unknown of the cosmos. Standing there, Galileo was both grounded in his time and lifted toward the infinite. As the seasons changed and the moons continued their eternal dance, Galileo's discovery rippled outward. The telescope became a symbol of human curiosity and ingenuity, a tool that expanded the boundaries of perception. Through it all, the gentle rhythm of the night persisted, the slow passage of time marked by the steady movement of celestial bodies. The moons of Jupiter, once invisible and unknown, now traced their paths across the sky, silent witnesses to a new era of exploration. And in the quiet hours on his balcony, Galileo remained a solitary observer, his eyes fixed on the distant lights that had forever changed the way we see our place in the universe. As the months passed after Galileo's initial observations, the impact of his discovery began to quietly ripple beyond the stone walls of his balcony and the city of Padua. His findings, detailed in the manuscript Sidereus Nuncius, the starry messenger, spread slowly but surely through the scholarly world. It was a brief work, filled with careful descriptions and sketches, but it carried with it the weight of profound change. The starry messenger spoke of a universe that was no longer the static, Earth-centered stage that had long been accepted. It revealed worlds moving around Jupiter, moons circling a planet just as Earth circled the Sun. It opened a new chapter in human understanding, one where observation, evidence, and curiosity took precedence over tradition. Galileo's balcony, where so many nights were spent under the stars, was now known among a small circle as the birthplace of this quiet revolution. The very act of looking patient, precise, and persistent had revealed a cosmos far more intricate and wondrous than had ever been imagined. In those nights on the balcony, the air was often cool and crisp, carrying the sense of spring blossoms, wet earth, and the distant sea. The city below settled into darkness, and the sounds of human life softened into a gentle murmur. Above, the sky stretched wide and deep, a limitless ocean of stars. Jupiter and its 4 moons continued their ceaseless, silent dance, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, names that would come to echo through the centuries as symbols of discovery and exploration. Each moon traced its path with quiet dignity, bound to their giant host by the invisible threads of gravity and time. Galileo imagined these distant worlds not just as points of light, but as places, each with its own character and mystery. What might the surface of Io be like, with its volcanic activity known now through later exploration? Or Europa, with its icy crust concealing a possible ocean beneath? Though such knowledge was far in the future, Galileo's discovery was the first step toward understanding these moons as real places, not just celestial curiosities. The telescopes of his day were simple, their glass imperfect, their fields of view narrow. Yet through them, the universe unfolded with astonishing clarity. The act of observing became a sacred ritual, a dialogue between human curiosity and the silent, vast cosmos. The moons of Jupiter also stood as proof that the universe did not revolve solely around Earth. This was a challenge not just to science but to philosophy, religion, and human self-perception. The idea that Earth was just one world among many was both humbling and liberating. Galileo's work faced opposition and controversy. Some dismissed his findings as optical illusions or tricks of the eye. Others feared the implications, seeing them as threats to the established order. Yet, through patience and persistence, Galileo defended his observations, confident in the truth revealed by the telescope. His balcony remained a place of quiet observation and reflection. Night after night, he returned to it, finding solace in the steady motion of the moons and the rhythm of the stars. The familiar streets of Padua below were a world apart from the vastness above, but in that contrast lay a profound connection, a link between the earthbound and the infinite. The discovery of Jupiter's moons was a beacon for future explorers, scientists, and dreamers. It marked the beginning of a new era where the sky was no longer a distant mystery, but a landscape to be studied, understood, and admired.